Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of The Message. I'm your host, Donatus King. We'll spend this next hour with one purpose in mind, and that one purpose is delivering the message that God is Almighty. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, is a piece of God. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, was made by God. Everything that ever happened is happening right now or ever will happen was made to happen by God. God is a master plan for all time and all creation. God is Almighty. The message is brought to you by the Society of Knowledge. The Society is an interdenominational ministry. Our members come from various different religious and spiritual backgrounds. We have various different religious and spiritual beliefs. Although we come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs, there's one belief that we share. There's one piece of knowledge that we hold in common, and that's the knowledge that there is a being. By no matter what name we may have been taught to call that being, by no matter what name we may have come to know that being, whether that name be God, Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, Jehovah, Buddha, by no matter what name, we know that there is a being that possesses not some of the power, not most of the power, but all of the power. That's the reason we do this show, and the only reason we do this show, and that's to deliver the message that that being that personally I call God, that being is indeed Almighty. I want to thank all of you that are joining us by Facebook. I see Brother Tony, Cousin Welly, Sister Connie, uh, coming out of San Antonio. Let's see who else we have. My niece Renata coming out of Los Angeles. All right. Thank all of you for watching on Facebook. And I do understand that there is some video difficulty. And I don't know why it's freezing up, but we're going to try to, as we go along, we're going to try to get that cleared up. So just bear with us. And what you see me doing right now, that's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm trying to see if there's a way that I can clean that up. But as we try to do that, and I don't want to take too much time working on that because I do want to make sure that we get into our discussion topic tonight. And that discussion topic is the rosary. All right. Okay. So we'll wait and see if we can get this cleared up. You know, the internet sometimes is a fickle thing. So we just work with what we have, trying to make sure we get that internet cleared up. I think the audio is coming through. I think the audio is coming through okay, but it's just that the video is freezing up. So we're gonna have to get some technology people online. So in the future that we'll be able to get that fixed up. All right, let's go on with tonight's program. And let's see if we get the screens up. And again, I welcome you to the message. And today is, let's see if we can get that screen up. Today is September the 21st, 2023. I remind that fact because tonight, as we are on most Thursdays, we are live. And I remind you of that fact because this show is an open discussion, say two-way conversation. For those of you that are watching by Facebook, you can join the conversation by posting your comments in the comment section, and I'll do my best to read them out over the air. Or you can join us by Zoom. And if you look earlier on this Facebook page, there's an invitation that you can click on, and it'll take you a link straight to Zoom. All right. The format of our show, we'll have some announcements. Then we'll have our religious spiritual study session. And then that'll be it. Okay, so let's get right into our announcements. Tonight's religious spiritual study is the rosary. So some of you that are familiar a little bit with the rosary, hopefully there'll be some new information that you'll find out, that you'll learn about the rosary tonight. And as you see on the screen, That's a picture of the rosary. And this is the Catholic rosary, something that you'll find out tonight, that you'll learn a little bit tonight, that there are different rosaries. Not only is there the Catholic rosary, but there are other rosaries that are used by other Christian denominations. And there are rosaries, prayer beads, that are used by some non-Christian denominations. So we'll talk about all that tonight. But this, as you see on the screen there, that's a depiction of the Christian, the Catholic rather, rosary. Announcements, that's our main website that you see on the screen. I invite you, I encourage you to log that into your web browser 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can visit that website and you can see previously recorded episodes of the message. There are links to all of our social media platforms. So I encourage you to visit that website and learn a little bit more about the society, and you're able to interact with the society. The Society of Knowledge, the New Orleans Center, and we're broadcasting tonight out of the New Orleans Center. We have our fellowship every Sunday at 10 a.m. Some people might call it a worship service, but we call it a fellowship. We have our fellowship every Sunday at 10 a.m. on Facebook Live, at the Messenger Facebook page and at my Facebook page, and that's Donatus and King. And you can also attend, and I encourage you, I invite you to attend our fellowship in person. And that's every Sunday at 10 a.m. And we are located at 1861 Abundant Street here in the city of New Orleans. So if you're in the New Orleans area, come on down, come on, join with us. We're interdenominational, so it doesn't matter what your religious affiliation. It doesn't matter if you don't have a religious affiliation. Come on down. You're welcome to come and fellowship with us. The Lafayette, Louisiana Center of the Society of Knowledge, that's presided over by Messenger Ryan King. We have a center located in North Carolina, and that's presided over by Messenger Tainav L. They have a broadcast. All right. Okay, look like the connection is back. And I don't know, the last couple of weeks, we've been having these problems. We've been having these problems. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to get that corrected. All right, let's see. Let's get this back up on the screen with our announcements. Okay, we have a center of the society located in Opelousas, Louisiana, and that's presided over by Messenger Corey Levier. They have a prison ministry, and they have a fellowship every Sunday at the St. Landry Parish Jail. We have a center located in Crowley, Louisiana, and that's presided over by Messenger Frank Othello Andrus Jr. As I said earlier, previously recorded episodes of the message can be watched on television. We are on TV, we're on the internet, we're live on the internet, and then we're also on television here in the New Orleans area, and that's on Cox Cable Orleans Channel 76, and that's on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. And let's say you can go to our YouTube page, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can watch previously recorded episodes of the message. All right, let's see, we have, very important, I want to invite all of you and encourage all of you to watch the show and participate. And let's see if we get that announcement back up. All right, we have a yard sale this Saturday, September 23rd, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that yard sale will be at 4106 Franklin Avenue here in the city of New Orleans. And that sale, that yard sale, is sponsored by Bethel Temple of Praise and Delivery Church. And that's pastored by Pastor Vanessa Landry. So I encourage you all that you're in the New Orleans area, come on down. Let's support Bethel Temple by attending the yard sale. And those of you that may not be aware of it, Bethel Temple is the church that allows us to use their facility to have our fellowship on Sunday. So we definitely want you to come on out and support Bethel Temple That's a yard sale this coming Saturday from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., 4106 Franklin Avenue here in the city of New Orleans. All right. Okay, we have Brother Corey joining us Brother Corey is joining us by Zoom. Good evening, Brother Corey. How are you? Let's see if we can pull you
Doing
up.
good, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, brother. Doing well. Let's see if we can pull this down and stop this screen share. All right. We did have your audio and your video. There you go. All right. So now we have you, brother. If you want to focus your camera a
Hey,
little
sir.
bit, adjust it a little bit. We just got the top of your head.
Good
Right
afternoon.
how you doing, Sister Donna? All right.
Well,
All right. Great. That's a beautiful smile, Sister Donna. That's a beautiful smile.
thank you.
All right. All right, Brother Corey, you have some words for us this evening.
Well, sir, you do the rosary. I just say that everybody needs to tie the knots out of their bodies and out of their soul so they can free themselves to receive the goodness of our Heavenly Father, the Divine Son, and the Heavenly Mother, the Holy Trinity.
All right. You must have been reading my notes for this evening. You're speaking about the knots. So, we're going to talk about the knots in just a minute. All right, Brother Corey. All right. Let's get into the presentation this evening. And this is, as we say, this is our moment of study, okay, our religious spiritual study. And we study so that we can gain knowledge. And it says, now my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, coming out of the book of Hosea, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, coming out of the book of John, and then out of the book of Thessalonians, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. So let's see if we can gain some knowledge so that we're not destroyed. And let's make sure that the knowledge that we gain is truth so that we can be free. And let's hold fast. Let's verify. Let's verify. I had somebody the other day. I don't know. I forget what it was that we were doing, but it was a thing that they were saying. Well, look, you don't trust me. I said, yeah, I trust you, but I'm gonna verify what you're telling me. All right, prove all things. Hold fast that which is good. Rosary. Tonight we're talking about the rosary, and as you see on your screen, this is a depiction, as I stated earlier, this is a depiction of the Catholic rosary. So now something that I learned preparing for tonight's presentation, I learned that not only is there a Catholic rosary, but there are different rosaries, and they go by different names. And the history of the rosary, we're gonna go into that just a little bit. And as you see on the screen, it's kind of hard to make out the writing on the screen, but I'll just tell you a little bit about what it is. As you see, there are 5 big or larger beads, and I'll count those out. Actually, it's 6. There's one here, another one there. So there's 1 large bead, 3 little beads, another large bead, then 10 beads, smaller beads, a large bead, 10 smaller beads, a large one, and so forward. So each of these groups of 10, that's called a decade, right? A decade. And on each bead, there are certain prayers that are supposed to be said on each bead. And I'll just read this. When you start out with the crucifix, and you make the sign of the cross, and you recite the Apostles' Creed, and then you go to the little beads, and you say the Hail Mary on the little beads, and then on the next large bead, you say a prayer that's called the Glory Be to the Father, and You also recite what's called a rosary mystery on that next large bead, right? So you got the glory bead, the Our Father, and there's a prayer called the mystery that you say on this bead. Then you start going around the circle, and on each one of these small beads, you say the Hail Mary. Then you get to the next large bead, you say the Our Father again, you say a mystery, and then the glory bead. And you go all around in that same order. And let's see, we do have some folks that are in the waiting room, and I think we've just admitted everybody. All right. So that's the Catholic. That is the Catholic rosary. Brother Rhett, thank you for joining us on Facebook. And I'm reminding everybody, thank you, my wife joining us on Facebook. I remind everybody that's watching by Facebook, please hit the like button, hit the share button, so that we can let as many folks know as possible that we're on live, so that they can join. And hopefully they'll be able to learn a little bit something about the rosary. And they may have some information that they want to share. All right. Now the rosary, this is a little bit history about the rosary. And the rosary, also known as the crown of roses, refers to a set of prayers used primarily in the Catholic Church. So the set of prayers, okay, all this group of prayers, that's called the rosary, but the physical object itself is sometimes called the rosary. And it's used to count the component prayers. So that's the purpose of the little beads, so that you can count the number of prayers that you're saying. The prayers that compose the rosary are arranged in sets of 10 Hail Marys called decades. Each decade is preceded by one large prayer, the Our Father, and traditionally followed by one glory be. That's another prayer. Some Catholics also recite the O My Jesus prayer after the glory be. It is the best known of the 7 Fatima prayers that appeared in the early 20th century. Rosary prayer beads are an aid for saying these prayers in their proper sequence. In the year 2014, the Catholic Church received the rosary in its present form. It was given to the church by Saint Dominic, who had received it from the Blessed Virgin Mary as a means of converting the Albigensians and other sinners. Saint Dominic, seeing that the gravity of people's sins was hindering the conversion of the Albigensians, withdrew into a forest near Toulouse, where he prayed continuously for 3 days and 3 nights. During this time, he did nothing but weep and do harsh penances in order to appease the anger of God. He used his discipline so much that his body was lacerated, and finally he fell into a coma. And so one of the things that we're learning about this, and I want to pay a little bit of attention to this, that this Saint Dominic, he was out converting folks. Okay, so he was out gaining followers to Catholicism, and in Toulouse, and that's in France, he was having a hard time making converts. So he's trying to figure out how can he make converts, how can he bring new people into his church, how can he convert these heathen Albigensians. All right, so let's figure out what he did. Let's see what he did. All right, now look what you see on the screen now. At this point, so he's been in the forest for 3 days praying and beating on himself. You know, and that's something I'm gonna skip over, that beating on himself, and he's abusing his body so much that it says his body was lacerated, and he fell into a coma. So he beat himself into a coma out there in the forest because he's trying to figure out a way how to convert some folks. Now I understand what he's going through, He's trying to get some folks into his church. And even so, this is letting me know that even back in the year 1200, it's hard to get folks in church. So St. Dominic is trying to figure out how to get some more folks into his church. And what happened? Okay, this is the next thing. It says, at this point, Mary, the Virgin Mary, appeared to him. And this is what we see in the screen. So there's the artist's depiction of the Virgin Mary. Here, this little child, this is Jesus. And we're not going to get into the different aspects about whether or not, what race Mary was, what color she was, what race Jesus was. We're not going to get into that. This is the artist's rendering of the Virgin Mary. And you can kind of make it out. These are angels, look like angels in the picture. All right. And here's old Dominic, St. Dominic. St. Dominic and the Virgin Mary is giving St. Dominic these beads, all right, these prayer beads. And remember again, the rosary has a couple of different meanings. One is the group of prayers that are said. And then the other meaning is the actual object itself, these beads. So Dominic was taught the prayers to say, the rosary. And as you see the artist's depiction, he is given these beads. All right, at this point, Mary appeared to him accompanied by 3 angels, right? I just said that, 3 angels. And she said, "Dear Dominic, do you know which weapon the Blessed Trinity wants to use to reform the world?" Now, I don't know who heard her say that. They didn't have any tape recordings. But anyway, whoever wrote this that I'm reading off, that's what it said. It said, "Dear Dominic, do you know which weapon the Blessed Trinity wants to use to reform the world?" "Oh, my lady," answered St. Dominic, "you know far better than I do, because next to your son Jesus Christ, you have always been the chief instrument of our salvation." Now, in Christianity, there are some Christians that really really have a little disagreement with Dominic on that, the position that he's putting the Virgin Mary in. And this is a word that you'll hear some folks use, Mariology. Mariology, the idolation and adoration of Mary. There are some Christians that have a problem with that. But according to Dominic, St. Dominic, he says, "Because next to your son, Jesus Christ, you have always been the chief instrument of our salvation." Then Mary replied, "I want you to know that in this kind of warfare, the principal weapon has always been the angelic psalter, which is the foundation stone of the New Testament. Therefore, if you want to reach these hardened souls and win them over to God, preach my psalter." All right, and psalter, and this is a reference to the Psalms that are in the Bible. So he arose comforted and burning with zeal for the conversion of the people in that district. He made straight for the cathedral. At once, unseen angels rang the bells to gather the people together, and St. Dominic began to preach. Okay, so now remember what we said earlier, we read about earlier, St. Dominic was having problems converting people. All right, all these people, they weren't hearing what he had to say. They belonged to another religion, a different religion. And St. Dominic was trying to convert them. So after he saw the Virgin Mary and had this conversation with her, he went to town. So remember, he was in the forest. So he went into the middle of town, and then all of a sudden, these unseen angels started ringing the town bells. Now, some of you may be aware that in the old days, back there in the 1200s, the town bell was not only something that told you when church was starting, but it was something that was a signal that something was going on. And if it was not on a Sunday, or any other holy day, and the bells start ringing, everybody would come to find out why are the bells ringing. Okay? So all of a sudden, after Dominic has had this conversation with the Virgin Mary, and she gave him the rosary, and he went to the town center, all of a sudden, the bells started ringing. And then when the bells started ringing, people came run there to see what's going on. It says that Dominic started preaching. At the very beginning of his sermon, now look here, look at it. At the very beginning of his sermon, an appalling storm broke out. The earth shook, the sun was darkened, and there was so much thunder and lightning that all were very much afraid. Even greater was their fear when, looking at a picture of the Virgin Mary that was exposed in a prominent place, they saw her raise her arms to heaven 3 times to call down God's vengeance upon them if they failed to be converted, to amend their lives, and seek the protection of the Holy Mother of God. God wished, by means of these supernatural phenomena, to spread the new devotion of the Holy Rosary and to make it more widely known. At last, at the prayer of St. Dominic, the storm came to an end, and he went on preaching. So fervently and compellingly did he explain the importance and value of the Rosary that almost all the people of Toulouse embraced it. All right, let's see what happened. Yeah. See, that was a miracle. All the people of Toulouse embraced it and renounced their false beliefs. In a very short time, a great improvement was seen in town. People began leading Christian lives and gave up their former bad habits. And so now we see, and let me pull that up the screen. Okay? We see that Dominic, as hard as he was working, he wasn't having any success with converting those folks in Toulouse. But a miracle happened, all right? A miracle happened. When he started preaching, the storm came up. It says all frightened, all kinds of thunder and lightning. The sun was darkened. The earth shook. And then to top all that off, the folks that's looking and trying to see what's going on, they look at this picture of the Virgin Mary and they see her hands being raised up. So now you know they felt some kind of way seeing all that kind of stuff. Okay, this had to be a miracle. So now we can get some understanding on how Dominic was able to convert those folks out there in Toulouse. All right, because a miracle happened. Right? So now I'm taking this, and I'm taking this as instructions that if it's God's will, that folks be converted, they'll be converted. And God has all different kind of ways that he can make that happen, right? He can make it happen by having somebody preaching, like he had Dominic preaching, or he can go take it another step and have thunder and lightning and bells ringing and all the rest of that. Another step. See, so anything is possible with God. Now, this is what I'm reading. I'm reading this. This comes from a website that's www.theholyrosary.org. Okay, www.theholyrosary.org/rosary history. So that's long as it tells us to prove all things, hold fast that which is good. So if you believe this, or if you don't believe that, I'm not here to try to tell you to do one or the other. I'm just here presenting this information to you. And if you look, do your research, this St. Dominic in the Catholic Church, he became a very important figure. And there's actually a group of priests that are called the Dominicans, all right? The Dominicans. And that's where it comes from, St. Dominic, all right? This religious order called the Dominicans. That's St. Dominic. So now you see, you learn a little bit something about, about the Rosary and a little bit something about the Catholic Church, these Dominicans. All right, now we've read and we've studied up to this point about the Catholic all right, the Catholic rosary. But as I said earlier, that there are other rosaries. And I was unaware of this, well, partially unaware of it. I didn't know about prayer beads, but there are other rosaries actually. Now this is, and we heard earlier when Brother Corey made, and Brother Corey, I see that you're still with us, but you're muted. So I'm going to see if we can get you unmuted. All right. See if we can get you unmuted, Brother Corey, and you'll be able to share with us a little bit knowledge, a little information about the beads. And as you see on your screen right now, these are the knotted prayer rope. All right. And it's a little bit hard to make out, but you see the surface looks a little bumpy. Those are knots. All right. So before they had beads on a string, they would just take a rope and tie the rope into knots. And each one of those knots served the same purpose as what we have nowadays, those beads. All right. So a little bit, knotted ropes were used in early Christianity. The Desert Fathers are said to have created the first such, using knots to keep track of the number of times they said the Jesus prayer or the 150 Psalms. Now that comes from Wikipedia. So one of the practical purposes of the rosary, of this device, okay, this physical thing, one of the practical purposes of that was to keep track of how many prayers were being said. So every time that you said a prayer, you put your finger on one of these knots. Okay, when you finish saying the prayer and you start saying it again, put it on the other knot, and so forth and so forth and so forth until you had said, all of them, and you were able to keep track of how many you were saying because you just kept putting your finger on a knot as it went along. And then later on, it developed into beads, right? So not knots, but actual beads, all right? So now I was saying that these prayer ropes and these other rosaries, we find them in different religions. Rosary, all right, also called prayer beads, religious exercise in which prayers are recited and counted on a string of beads or a knotted cord. By extension, the beads or cord may also be called a rosary. The practice is widespread, occurring in virtually every major religious tradition in the world. See, now I didn't know that. All right. In Buddhism, the beads are known as malas, M-A-L-A-S. Prayer beads are a traditional tool in Buddhism and are especially common among Tibetan Buddhists. Now, we studied a week or two ago about those Tibetan monks. All right, and this is, and let me just extrapolate a little bit here. When you study about the prayer beads, one of the things that you learn is that by saying these prayers, repetitively saying these prayers, it alters your consciousness. So you go to a different level of consciousness. And there are different things that occur and go on with your mind, with your brain. And there are scientists that have actually performed research showing the electrical activity in a person's brain changes depending upon their state of focus, their state of consciousness. And if they're praying, you can see a physical change in the brain. So we discussed a week or two ago, about how cutting out on distractions and just focusing all of your consciousness, focusing your mind, focusing your entire being, focusing that, cutting out all distractions, all physical. That's the information as far as the rosary. And one of the things that you see that is not something that is only restricted to Catholicism, and it's not only restricted to Christianity, but there's been this knowledge, and I use that word, this knowledge throughout the different countries, throughout the different religions, this knowledge, this technique, as far as being able to focus and being able to concentrate, being able to make that connection. And as we read through today about Saint Dominic, and it said that Saint Dominic, when he was able to communicate with the Virgin Mary, that he actually went into the forest. So there's something about that isolation. When we read in the Bible, we read about Jesus Christ doing what? Jesus Christ isolated himself, cut out on all the distractions. So he went out in the desert. What it was, Brother Corey, I think it was 40 days that he went out. He isolated himself. When we read through the Quran and we read about the Prophet Muhammad, we know that that was a regular thing that he did, and that was to go and isolate himself. So there's something to that isolation, and because we read through it throughout Islam with Muhammad, we read Christianity with Jesus Christ, we read even in Judaism, because Judaism talks about who was that Jewish religious leader that isolated himself? Well, I think his name was Moses. It said that Moses did what? Moses went up on the mountain, isolated himself. And so it's something to that, and it's something that we can learn. That Brother Justin, thank you, Brother Justin, for joining us, coming out of the northeast Louisiana. Thank you for joining, Bishop. And Bishop was saying, there's something about getting that isolated. Sometimes in our lives, now we have to cut out all the distractions. And that's even harder to do nowadays, because nowadays, most of us walk around with cell phones. So it's hard to get away from those cell phones. We have folks that are calling us, folks that are texting us, folks that are sending emails all through your cell phone. And it's hard to actually cut all of that, leave in order to connect. They cut those distractions. So that's instructive to us, that sometimes, we have to put all that stuff away. Even our spouses, we have to just put it away. We have to put everything away, to be able to commune with the all in all. And even though we are constantly in contact and in touch with the all in all, in touch with God. And that's right, every last one of us are constantly 24/7 in contact, in communication with Almighty God. But sometimes in order for us to realize that and appreciate that, we have to cut back on all the distractions, okay? All the things that draw our attention away. The same way that these folks do when they have those prayer beads and they're going into deep meditation. And you heard Renata speak about, as we reiterate, as we repeat on the message and in the society, that God's will be done. God's will be done. Thy will be done. And I'll share something with you that when we talk about God, when I talk about God, I'm talking about that which is all things, that I'm a part of God, you're a part of God. We're all a part of the one body. So even though we might seem to be out of touch, we're always in communication because every little thing that's around us, every little thing that exists is a part of the one. To be able to sometimes better understand what the all in all, to be able to understand what God is telling us, sometimes we do need to isolate ourselves. And that's something that we're learning, that not only do we learn that through Catholicism, not only do we learn it through Christianity, but we learn it through Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, through all of the major religions. We learn that. So we're going to close out tonight. And I know it's a little bit early. Let's see if we can get any comments. Those of you that are watching by Facebook, and I know that things were freezing up, but if you have any comments, you post them, and we'll see if we can get those in before we close out tonight. Let's see if we. It looks like we've lost. Yes, we have lost Brother Corey, and there's something that's happening with the internet. I don't know if there's some interference, and it may be some type of interference. But we know that what's going to be is going to be. We know that God has a plan for all things. So, it was God's plan that we would have a little difficulty tonight, but as you can see, and this is, there's a word that starts with a P, and that word is perseverance, right? Perseverance. So I thank God. For, even though we did experience some technology problems tonight, I thank God that we were able to persevere, that we were able to continue delivering this message, that God is indeed almighty, and that things are going to go exactly the way God wants them to go. So I'm just grateful and thankful to God that it didn't go the way I planned it, because the way I planned it, we would not have had these problems. But that is not my will. That's what, who was that said? That was Jesus Christ said, not my will, but thy will be done. So as we close out, it's my prayer that the same way that we ran into some difficulties, technical difficulties here tonight, the same way that things didn't go the way that we had planned them to go, didn't go as smoothly as we had planned them to go. It's my prayer that you have some understanding that things don't always go the way you plan them, no matter how much attention you pay to detail. Things will not always go the way that you planned it, will not go according to your wishes. But if tonight has taught you anything, it's my prayer that tonight has taught you to be able to find peace, even when things aren't going the way that you plan. It is my prayer that in this upcoming week, no matter whatever it is that you have to go through, no matter what it is that you have to go through, it's my prayer that God Almighty blesses you and blesses you even full of adversity, that God Almighty blesses you and yours with peace. Until we meet again here next Thursday on The Message. And hopefully you come down and fellowship with us this coming Sunday, 1861 Abundant Street here in the city of New Orleans. Come down and fellowship with us in person. Come on down. And until we meet again, it's my prayer that God Almighty blesses you and yours with peace.